Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Orange Hat. I am here to basically be a general pain in the ass to all audiences. Of course, I'm only joking right there. Let me get this banner down because I believe in being seen and also heard at the same time. So, yes, welcome. So, yeah, how is everybody doing? I am sorry for being late. I had to take care of something rather important. And well, if it's important, you must take care of it. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done. So, with that being said, hello to everybody in the chat. We got the static transmission of Orange Hat Wars, EU Wars, static transmission ends. Like all good media, to expand the materials of the movies, Chancellor George Lucas and Lucasfilm for the Republic gave us the most important aspect of Star Wars besides the films, the expanded universe. However, the wicked Count Filoni and his overlords have destroyed the EU. One by one, the EU has been tainted and removed from the history of Star Wars. Against this threat upon the Jedi Knights falls the duty to lead an army of the EU defenders and loyalists. One of these defenders and loyalist, a Jedi Grandmaster. Oh, thank you, buddy. And his followers, us in the chat. Yes, you in the chat. We'll discuss the light side and even the dark side of the expanded universe. All serious, howdy Orange and the good folks in the chat. And hello to Vanya and and Darth Zathra. So, yes, folks, today I will be discussing the EU, which is the expanded universe. Not anything that Filoni has done, because Filoni is he is a tainter of Star Wars, and I will not be talking about anything Jon Favreau has done. All the Disney stuff and the Filoni stuff, that's going to be discussed next week. And believe me, I am going to have to be wading through the piss and shit and muck of Disney Star Wars after this stream and after I watch Demolition Man and Blade 2. I got to watch those movies before I can get ready to go through all the Star Wars shit that needs to be covered for next week's Disney discussion. Now, also, I do want to make it known that next week I will be giving objective criticism, which means I will also be giving a little bit of positive towards the Disney Star Wars stuff as well. There is positive with negative, light and dark, everything balanced. However, the Disney stuff is very unbalanced. There's a very big imbalance within Disney's lore. But today, it's EU talk, strict EU talk, anything that existed before before Lucas interacted with Dave Filoni. So, and stuff that I do or that I know about. So, yeah. But before I do get into that, make sure that you smash the like button, share my stream out. I'm trying to, or the watch time. While I do appreciate everybody still building my watch time, I love you all for it. I'm at 4,200 hours. Thank you all so much. I now need the shares. I now need new subscribers. I am trying to get to 2025 by the year 2025. If I can do that, you will all have helped make this journey worth it. So if I can keep growing, that is the goal now, to grow the channel even more. I am now fully able to monetize for when I finally choose to. But that is going to happen at a later time because I still value the freedom of speech that I am able to express without the burdens of monetization and threats to demonetize if you say something against a narrative. So, with that being said, hello to Jet Sparks and everybody else in the chat. I highlighted everybody else already. So, with the EU, one of the things I absolutely love was how it expanded beyond the Skywalker universe. Yes, you have the later stuff, which is the stuff that takes place after Return of the Jedi, starting with Truce of Bakura. Now, a lot of people always say if you're going to start with stuff after Star Wars or after the movies, go straight for the Thrawn trilogy. I do not believe that that is a fair assessment. I believe in I believe in going in chronological order. Chronological order helps things along. So when you are going to say, or you know what, actually, hold on one second. I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to grab one of my books, which has the old EU calendar in it. So just bear with me 1 second, folks. Okay. Let's see here. I'll put this up and I'll mute. Alrighty. So, I'm back. Sorry to have given you a small delay. Let me put away the banner here. So, yeah, I grabbed a bunch of stuff for you. Book of Sith and Jedi Path for Force Users Anonymous and whatnot. Great stuff in there. Plus, a bunch of my other big ass volumes. Jedi versus Sith, the Essential Guide to the Force. That's to dust a lot of this stuff off. Episode 1, 2, and 3 visual dictionaries. These come in handy, folks. Believe me, they do. The Ultimate Visual Guide, which is the preferred one compared to this one, which gives the Filoni taint. So I'll put that over there for now. But this is something that I will touch on when I get to next week's thing. So I will use those two for later stuff. But this stuff is the important stuff of the EU, as well as other stories that took time in between. Now, there are how many are in the chat and whatnot? We got 7 people. So we got 5 people in YouTube. You all are freaking awesome. Thank you, thank you. Make sure that you smash the like button. So when it comes to EU, my favorite stuff is Sith lore, because Sith lore is, well, everybody likes the bad guys. But I also like the good guy stuff too. Now, I brought down my paperback of Invincible because it has the or it has this, which is the official novel timeline. So from the Darth Bane books to the Star Wars or to Invincible. I mean, yes. Um, hello, Orin or Vanya. I'm already, dude. I'm live. So yeah. Uh, refresh, buddy. So yeah, when it comes to Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, Rule of Two, and Dynasty of Evil, that's my favorite trilogy of books. When it comes to my favorite standalone book, it is Dark Rendezvous, the book about Yoda and Dooku. Outbound Flight was a good one. I also do like the Vader trilogy, which is Labyrinth of Evil, Episode 3, and then Rise of Darth Vader. Um, but before the Clone Wars stuff ever came out and the High Republic and all that shit, we had the EU and the Vong War, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 books. 21, no, 22 books of the New Jedi Order. Well, 21 of the New Jedi Order, but during that time period, there was also Boba Fett, A Practical Man, which was a novella, or an ebook novella. And there you go. All right, glad you're back there, bub. Good to see you. But yes, when it comes to, or I'm going to start with stuff like I'm going to go into chronological order. But as I said, if you are starting the EU from the after the events of the movies, start with Truce of Bakura, because Truce of Bakura, let's see here, Return of the Jedi. I mean, yes, you also have Tales of the Bounty, or Tales of Jabba, Tales of the Empire, Tales of the New Republic, the Bounty Hunter Wars, the Mandalorian Armor, Slave Ship, and Hard Merchandise, and then the Truce of Bakura. Now, those other ones are all taking place during Return of the Jedi, but Truce of Bakura takes place directly after. And hello, I read Labyrinth of Evil. Anakin used Force Scream to such a degree that it brought down the ceiling of a building he was in while chasing down Dooku. Yeah. Yep. But yes, Truce of Bakura is the book that got me into the EU, because it also has a nice bit where Anakin actually talks to Leia. Anakin's Force Ghost comes to Leia to give her a final message. Also, we do learn that Force Ghosts do have a limited time in the physical plane. They cannot just stay in the physical plane all the time. So Anakin, despite what everybody sees in Filoni's universe, Anakin couldn't stay long in the physical realm as a Force Ghost because he was not properly educated in communing with the Force to that degree. It was only because he was so strong within the Force that he was able to merge with it. Now, you do have Qui-Gon Jinn, who did assist Yoda in learning the ways of the Force. I mean, shit, got all sorts of stuff in these dusty old tomes of mine. Now, there is some good stuff in these books, don't get me wrong, but some of them are tainted by Filoni. And others not so much. But those books are for when I discuss Disney and Filoni taint stuff. These ones are all before Filoni. These ones here. Oh. But I don't even really totally need to draw on these yet, because I know their contents that well. But yeah, or start with Truce of Bakura. That is my, or yes, the Thrawn trilogy is a great trilogy. Nobody is disputing that here. The Thrawn trilogy is truly a great trilogy. And Vader, knowing what it's like in the suit, holy crap. You know what? I did say that I would actually read a passage from that. So let me go up and get that book. So, yeah, hold on one moment. Okay, I'm back. So, there we go. So, yes, I got my paperback of Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader here. And I do believe. Nope. Yes. Let's see here. Yep. There's it. Now, yes. Chapter 10 of The Rise of Darth Vader for all you Vader fans out there, because there is a group on Facebook. Shout out to the Vader fans on Facebook. They allow everybody to have differences of opinion and whatnot, and I do allow them, or I do enjoy being a part of that. So with that or said, also shout out to James Lucino for this book, for writing it. This guy gives this book gives a detailed description of Vader, what it's like in the suit. But before I do that, let me highlight this thing from Neozoic. Fun fact: Boba Fett and General Grievous' first appearance were animated. Boba Fett in holiday special animated segment, and Grievous. Yep, indeed. Yep, indeed. Now, moving on, Vader didn't rise until the Emperor's hollow image had de-resed entirely. He stood for a long moment with his sheathed arms dangling at his sides, his head mournfully bowed. Finally, he turned and moved for the hatch that opened up on the Exactor's ready room. To the galaxy at large, Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, the poster boy of the war effort, the hero with no fear, and the chosen one, had died on Coruscant during the siege of the Jedi Temple, Operation Nightfall. And to some extent, that was true. Anakin is dead, Vader told himself. And yet, if not for events on Mustafar, Anakin would sit now on the Coruscant throne, his wife by his side, their child in her arms. Instead, Palpatine's plan couldn't have been more flawlessly executed. He had won it all: the war, the Republic, the fealty of the one Jedi Knight in whom the entire Jedi Order had once placed its hope. The revenge of the self-exiled Sith had been complete, and Darth Vader was merely a minion, an errand boy, allegedly an apprentice, public face of the dark side of the Force. And while he retained his knowledge of the Jedi arts, he felt uncertain about his place in the Force. And while he had taken his first steps towards awakening the power of the dark side, he felt uncertain about his ability to sustain that power, how far he might have gone, or he might have been now, had fate not intervened to strip him of almost everything he possessed as a means of remaking him, or of humbling him, as Darth Maul and Tyrannus had been humbled before him, as indeed the Jedi Order itself had been humbled. Where Darth Sidious had gained everything, Vader had lost everything, including, for the moment at least, the self-confidence and unbridled skill he demonstrated as Anakin Skywalker. Now, this is the important bit, folks. Ugh, dang bugs. Oh, okay, it's a harmless one. Whew, thought it was a mosquito for a moment. I hate those things. But yes, Vader turned and moved for the hatch. But this is not walking, he thought. Long accustomed to the build and rebuilding droids, supercharging the engines of land speeders and starfighters, upgrading the mechanisms, and controlled the first of his artificial limbs, he was dismayed by the incompetence of the medical droids responsible for his resurrection. And Insidious's lofty laboratory on Coruscant. How would I rank the Darth Vader trilogy from weakest to best? I can't rank that like that, and to be completely honest. Revenge of the Sith, or honestly, folks, I put them in reverse or Revenge of the Sith first, Darth Vader second, Labyrinth of Evil third. But to me, they stand on equal footing for the most part. So, his lofty lower legs were bulked by strips of armor similar to those that filled and gave form to the long glove Anakin had worn over his right arm prosthesis. What had remained of his real limbs ended in bulbs of grafted flesh inserted into machines that triggered movement through the use of modules that interfaced with his damaged nerve endings. But instead of using Durasteel, the medical droids had substituted an inferior alloy and had failed to inspect the strips that protected the electromotive lines. As a result, the inner lining of the pressurized bodysuit was continually snagging on places where the strips anchored to knee and ankle joints. So yeah, he had to, walking is irritating to him. He hates it. The tall boots were a poor fit for his artificial feet, whose claw-like toes lacked electrostatic sensitivity of his equally false fingertips. Raised in the heel and cumbersome foot gear canted him slightly forward, forcing him to move with exaggerated caution lest he stumble or topple over. So yeah, he's constantly pitched forward due to those boots that he's in. Worse, they were so heavy that he often felt rooted to the ground, as if he were moving in high gravity. What good was motion of this sort if he was going to have to call on the Force to even walk from place to place? Yeah, he uses the Force to help him be steady, folks. Anakin or Vader is constantly drawing on the Force just to freaking walk in his first few months in the suit. He may have as well have resigned himself to using a repulsor chair and abandoned any hope of movement. The defects of his prosthetic arms mirror those of his legs. Only the right one felt natural to him, though it too was artificial. The pneumatic mechanisms that supplied articulation and support were sometimes slow to respond. The weighty cloak and pectoral plating so restricted his movement that he could scarcely lift his arms over his head. And he had already been forced to adapt his lightsaber technique to compensate. So essentially, folks, that pauldron that is over his shoulders, that goes down to about here, under his pectoral areas, or over his pectorals, he can't lift his arms like that. So when you see Darth Vader in, that Kenobi show where he's holding the lightsaber like this, doesn't work. I mean, when he goes up for overhanded strikes, he has to bend back in order to give himself a more fleshed out and momentous swing. Darth Vader is, at this point in his life, at his lowest, because he is depressed. He can't stand the suit he's in. So yeah. He could probably adjust the servo drivers and pistons in his forearms to provide his hands and strength with enough to crush the hilt of his new lightsaber with the power of his arms alone. Had he the ability to lift, or he had the ability to lift a human being off the ground. But the Force had always given him the ability to do that, especially in moments of rage, as he had demonstrated on Tatooine and elsewhere. What's more, the sleeves of his bodysuit didn't hug the prosthesis as it should, and the elbow-length gloves sagged and bunched at his wrists. So yeah, around here it made it more restrictive because he couldn't really get a good grip and have good wrist dexterity and whatnot. So, gazing at the gloves, he thought, this is not seeing. The pressurized mask was goggle-eyed, fish-mouthed, short-snouted, and needlessly angular over the cheekbones. Coupled with the flaring dome of a helmet, the mask gave him a forbidding appearance of an ancient Sith war droid. The dark hemispheres that covered his eyes filtered out light that might have caused further injury to his damaged corneas and retinas. But in enhanced mode, the half globes reddened the light and prevented him from being able to see the toes of his boots without inclining his head almost 90 degrees. Yeah, the facial structure of his mask, he can't look down unless he cranes his head down. Listening to the servo motors that drove his limbs, he thought, this is not hearing. The med droids rebuilt the cartilage of his outer ears, but his eardrums, having melted on Mustafar's heat, had been beyond repair. So, yeah, Mustafar made him deaf. Sound waves now had to be transmitted directly to implants in his inner ear, and sound registered as if issuing from underwater. Worse, the implanted sensors lacked sufficient discrimination, so that too many ambient sounds were picked up, like background noise and whatnot. And their distance and distinction, or their distance and direction, were difficult to determine. Sometimes the sensors needled him with feedback or attached echo and vibrato effects to even the faintest noise. So something like that tapping noise could overwhelm his hearing. I mean, this man is literally in a suit that is meant to build his rage. So, allowing his lungs to fill with air, he thought, this is not breathing. Here, the med droids had truly failed him. From a control box he wore strapped to his chest, a thick cable entered his torso, linked to the breathing apparatus and heartbeat regulator. So, yeah, this is where Disney stuff really hurts the suit of Vader. Because I will point this out in next week's episode as well as this one. In the Kenobi show, Kenobi uses the hilt of his lightsaber to bash in the control box of Vader. Doing that would have killed Vader. Because Vader would have had, or would only have minutes to live. Hold on one second, folks. Sorry about that. Had to take care of something. So, the ventilator was implanted in his hideously scarred chest. along with tubes that ran directly into his damaged lungs and others that entered his throat. So that should, excuse me, need a drink. So that should the chest plate or belt controls develop a glitch, he could breathe unassisted for a limited time. So yeah, when Vader was on that weird planet with Obi-Wan in the Kenobi show, and he had his power box damaged beyond repair at that point, I wouldn't have been trying to talk with Obi-Wan. I would have been trying to get the hell out of there. But hey, you know. But the monitoring panel beeped frequently and for no reason, and the constellations of light only served as steady reminders of his vulnerability. The incessant rasp of his breathing interfered with his ability to rest, let alone sleep. And sleep, in the rare moments it came to him, was a nightmarish jumble of twisted, recurrent memories that unfolded to excruciating sounds. So yeah, the visions may have been burned away from him, which I do believe this covers. But however, he still remembers his life as Anakin Skywalker. The Medroids had at least inserted redundant breathing tubes low enough so that with the aid of an enunciator, his scorched vocal cords could still form sounds and words. But absent the enunciator, which imparted a synthetic-based tone, his own voice was little more than a whisper. So, yeah, Kenobi's show screwed that up too. If he was, or this is also slightly inconsistent with Return of the Jedi, folks. But then again, by the time of Return of the Jedi, he could have healed enough because his body was constantly being attended to medically over the years. So, but at that time, in the early years, even 10 years later, he could barely form words or he could barely talk. I mean, this is how he would talk, if anything, without the use of the voice, you know? It would only sound like this. Or even worse than that. So, he took food, or he could take food through his mouth as well, but only when he was inside a hyperbaric chamber, since he had to remove the triangular respiratory vent that was the mask's prominent feature. So it was easier to receive nourishment through liquids, intravenous and otherwise, and rely on catheters, collection pouches, and cyclers to deal with any liquid and solid wastes. So essentially, he's also a walking toilet as well. He carries his toilet with him. Catheters and collection pouches and whatnot. He shits, it goes into a collection pouch if he's in the suit. This suit is literally his life. People don't realize that. Oh, it's an awesome suit. It's like, you don't want to be in that suit. And yes, Vader's suit was literal torture, and his respirator was his weak point, yes. And good to see you, Happy Dinosaur. Thank you so much for dropping in. I'm doing well. How are you? But all those devices made it even more difficult for him to move with ease, much less any grace. The pectoral armor that protected his artificial lung weighed him down. Let's see here. And as did the electro-studded collar that supported the outsized helmet, necessary to safeguard the cybernetic devices that replaced the uppermost of his vertebrae. The delicate systems of the mask and the ragged scars of his hairless head, which owed as much to what he had endured on Mustafar as to attempts at emergency trepanation during the trip back to Coruscant aboard Sidious's shuttle. The synth skin that substituted for what was seared from him or seared from his bones, itched incessantly. So the man has a constant itch. This man is constantly itching, like somebody poured or doused eternal itch powder on him. And his body needed to be periodically cleansed and scrubbed of necrotic flesh. So I'm guessing all those times in the back to tank in Disney's continuation stuff, I'm guessing basically those are what they're showing. Already he had experienced moments of claustrophobia, moments of desperation to be rid of the suit, to emerge from the shell. He needed to build or have built a chamber in which he could feel human again. And we do see that aboard the Executor. If possible, all in all, he thought, this is not living. This was solitary confinement, prison of the worst sort, continual torture. He was nothing more than wreckage, power without clear purpose. A melancholy sigh escaped his mouth grill. Collecting himself, he stepped through the hatch. That's what it's like being in the suit of Darth Vader, folks. Living fucking hell. He has, or me, personally, I could never purposefully piss myself or even allow myself to. I actually have to be standing in front of a toilet to actually do it, unless my body was so full that I had absolutely no choice but to do it. Even in delirium of anesthesia from after surgeries, I couldn't go to the bathroom in a jug. It was very hard to put my mindset into a jug to piss in. So yeah. I mean, life support machine isn't very fulfilling. Yeah, exactly. And he had to push through that. Now, there is a wonderful thing, folks. My favorite character in all of Star Wars EU is Valkorion, the Sith Emperor, the immortal Sith Emperor Vitiate. And the way that he became immortal requires constant pain, requires constant physical torment. And it also requires the dehumanizing of your soul, meaning you have to literally let go of all of your emotions, quite literally all of them, in order to or any senses of compassion and the like. This is in the Revan novel, which I haven't read, but I am aware of the contents within it. Because Scourge actually describes what it's like to be immortal, thanks to the efforts of the Emperor. And believe me, it's not fun for him, you know? It really is not. So when you have the immortality and the dark side and all that lovely stuff that everybody says, oh, it's a path to power, you have to also realize that it's a path to sacrifice. Your body cannot handle all that power. Look at what happens to Sidious. Ramping up all that power. Sure, the Force lightning melted his skin a little bit, but he eventually would have looked like that even if he hadn't got cooked by his own damn lightning. Sidious's body, or there's a part in the EU where Luke, during the Yuzong Vong War, I believe it was, used the Force to such momentous or such strength in the Force where he overexerted himself to where his body or his face started to become misshapen. He was almost kind of looking like Palpatine because he was using the Force to create a physical facsimile of a ship that he was in to draw Yuzong Vong forces away, while he also used the Force to cloak his own ship. So yeah. Another example, look at Darth Sion. Darth Sion, speaking of Darth Sion, Anakin Skywalker, or Vader, actually survived because he drew on the same strength that Sion did. Sion is known as the Lord of Pain. He is alive strictly because of his hatred and his pain, Constant pain. His body is dead. That's why he has that rotted look. But he is able to stay alive through the dark side of the Force. And only through Mitra Surik, the exile, did he finally die, because she redeemed him. Redeeming Darth Sion is what killed him. So, yeah. Not to mention, who was that other Sith Lord that basically drew on the dark side or the pain a lot? I believe it was Malgus that did so as well, because Malgus, while a lot of people think that he's solely a Sith juggernaut, he is not. He is a very powerful practitioner of the dark side of the Force. He wished that Vader, or Palpatine wished that Vader would take a lot of cues from Malgus, because he actually gave Vader Malgus's journal. And Malgus, Vader took the wrong instances from it, took the wrong lessons from it. I'm curious where I should start with the Expanded Universe books. If you want to read after the movies, start with the Truce of Bakura and work your way up. Do not start with simply the Thrawn trilogy. No, start with the Truce of Bakura. Before I go, I'm going to be here for like a couple hours, bub. My face is a little worn. Is everything okay up there? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're just, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. But yes, I'm curious as to whether, start with Truce of Bakura if you are going for after the books or after the movies. If you want to check out some of the earlier stuff before the movies, go to Darth Bane or read the Revan novel, then do Darth or some of those other novels. Darth Bane trilogy is a great read. The Plagueis novel, as much as it actually has about 20% of Filoni's taint in it, I still find that Darth Plagueis, or the Darth Plagueis novel, is still a good novel. I started with Darth Bane. Yeah. Darth Bane, the rule or the body of the rule of two. I wish they had continued the line of the rule of two, which would have been an entire series, folks, if they had kept the EU. They would have had a Zana and Cognis, or they would have had Zana and Cognis novels. They would have had Darth Millennial novels. They would have had Darth Gravid and Darth Gian novels. They would have had the novels that led up to Darth Tenebris and Darth Plagueis. They would have continued the line of the rule of two. I have no doubt. And I wish they had. Because the Darth Bane novels, some of the best novels I ever read, including the second one, the Rule of Two. Because, yes, a lot of people give a lot of shit about that one. But honestly, I think that is actually well done, because it shows his journey into learning the hubris of the dark side with the Orbalisks, and then having to give them up because he realized that that path was not one that a Sith should take, because it offers weakness. I'm looking for before the movies. I'll read the Darth Bane books next time I go to the bookstore. Yes, not Labyrinth of Evil, but Path of Destruction, Rule of Two, and Dynasty of Evil. Great books, man. You will enjoy those books. You will also see how powerfully or how skilled of a lightsaber duelist Darth Bane is. Darth Bane was to give you guys an idea, Darth Bane, from where I am to that window over there. Crap, I'm going to have to redo my thing. But as you can see, I'm frozen right now. But that window that I'm pointing to off in the distance, as you all see there, Darth Bane was standing. He was standing that far away from from shelter, and a downpour started. And he was flourishing his lightsaber with such velocity that not a single raindrop touched his skin. Not a single raindrop. And it started to downpour when he got halfway to that distance, or only covered half the distance. It then started to downpour, yet he still ramped up the velocity of his lightsaber movements, and not a single raindrop touched him. Now, let me redo my camera here so I don't look like an idiot on the screen. Yes, this is going to be fixed. Ha ha! Fixing the audio. There we go. Alrighty. Whew. I liked all three for the most part. The neutral Jedi thing was dumb. Yeah, the neutral Jedi thing was dumb. I will fully admit that as well. I will read after I finish the first William Gibson novel. Okay. Cool. Orange Hat will return in Revenge of Orange Hat, yeah. Revenge of the Orange Hat. Rule of Two was the peak of Bane's power. Rule of Two was the peak of Bane's power with the crutch of the Orbalisks. Do you think Bane would hate Darth Sidious for abandoning the Rule of Two? Bane would have killed Darth Sidious. Bane would kill Bane, or a lot of people don't realize this. The Sith of the Rule of Two would see Sidious and even his master Plagueis. As much as I love Plagueis, I mean, that man had a lot in common with Tenebrae or Vitiate. After the shit with Gravid, with Darth Gravid, who tried to marry the light side and the dark side, a redeemed Sith Lord, so to speak, and then destroyed a lot of Sith knowledge. After that, those Sith who were spirits, a lot of them, even the ancient Sith, despised the Rule of Two. To them, it weakened the Sith. However, I do believe that if Darth Bane, at the height of his power, ever fought Darth Sidious, Sidious wouldn't stand a chance. Sidious would be annihilated. Because Darth Bane knew a lot greater techniques in the Force than Sidious ever learned. Darth Bane also had, like Sidious, an instinctual connection to the dark side and literally required no training to use it for a time. By using it like a beast instinctively, he was incredibly powerful. But when he started learning to hone that power and to harness it and temper that power, he actually had less potential, in my opinion. I mean, he was casting Force storms in a frickin' library, or in the frickin' library on Korriban, when others were just learning how to cast Force lightning. He was casting Force storms. So yeah, Bane is a fucking beast. He is a prodigy of the dark side. But Bane generates a Force shield in meditation that vaporized Darth Andudu's follows Prakith. Yeah. Yep. Although, would Darth Revan be the creator of the Rule of Two, since Bane did learn from him? He took inspiration from Revan. Bane adopted the Rule of Two and refined it to where Revan adopted a Rule of Two, which still allowed for other Force wielders dark side force wielders. Where Revan was more of a person who would have more stood along with Khan's army. However, there were only two Dark Lords, a master and apprentice. Revan still allowed for other Force sensitives to fight with or fight for him, Darksiders and whatnot. Where Darth Bane's rule of two is there are only two, master and apprentice. Any other Force user that you bring in, you better be willing to kill your master before you bring them in. That is why when Caedus was brought in, when Caedus was found by Zana or by Bane, he was grooming he was grooming her and then he was going to kill Zana. Zana finally said, then I guess we are at an impasse here. We are going to have to fight for the mantle of Dark Lord. When she finally won over against Bane, when she finally killed Bane, and yes, folks, he attempted essence transfer on her, and yes, she had that twitch. However, she still won out because the twitch went away. Where Bane had that twitch after many years of the dark side use. She eventually was extremely powerful due to her mastery of Sith sorcery. She would actually give the older or the ancient Sith, Zozan and what's her name, a run, or they would actually be very proud of her because she was able to cast what are known as dark side tendrils. Dark side tendrils are the most devastating physical manifestation of the dark side ever. Touching them is instant destruction. When one of them simply just brushed against Bane's arm, it obliterated everything below that spot. It destroyed his arm. And Zana herself was also extremely, extremely powerful. Not Belia Darzu. Sora Zin is the one I'm talking about. But yes, Belia Darzu was also a powerful practitioner. But when it came to Sith sorcery, Darth Zana, I would never want to fuck with that woman. And I love how a lot of people are like, there are not a lot of good Sith in the EU. And it's like, you guys have no idea, man. Darth Zana completely accepted her femininity and her sexuality and used it to her advantage. She slutted it up only when necessary because she realized that that women have a lot of power over some men. And take it easy, Happy Dino. Thank you so much for stopping in. Make sure you smash the like on your way out. But yeah, makes me wonder how Darth Caedus took out Zana since she is incredibly powerful. Darth Caedus had power herself. One of the things about Iktachi, which is her species, the ones with the horns like this, like that one of the Jedi Masters that went after Palpatine, Cess-18. She's a female of that species, and they are naturally precognizant through the Force. Her entire species is banned from gambling institutions because they can naturally read where a progression is going to go. They can see the future to a good or natural, or they can naturally see the future. So Darth Caedus could easily destroy Zana when she saw how well she would be able to do it. All she had to do was follow the will of her own species' precognizance. Hence her name, Darth Caedus. And it's good to see you, Soul Assassin. I've missed you, man. I've missed you. Good to see you. Who would be the Jedi equivalent of Darth Bane in terms of power level? Yoda. Let's see here. Actually, his equivalent, there's no equivalent really. However, there are some Jedi who are extremely powerful. One would be Nomi Sunrider. Folks, if ever there was a person or a human who was so naturally gifted with the Force that Anakin Skywalker should have learned more about, it was Nomi Sunrider. Nomi Sunrider, folks, was a true gift in the Force. A virgins unlike any other. Now, a lot of people know what or don't know what a virgins is. A virgins is an extreme or an area of extreme potential within the Force, a Force nexus, so to speak. They can be people, they can be places. Nathema is a dark virgins in the Force because it is now literally an echo in the Force, where you also have place or things like Darth Nihilus. He is not a natural occurrence in the Force. He is a nexus because of his ability, but he was never a virgins. A virgins is a natural bringing about of untapped potential. Nomi Sunrider was the wife of a Jedi who didn't have training in her adult life, and then after her husband was killed, she would later become a Grand Master of the Order, learning from the Jedi Master Thrawn, who knew techniques in the Force that no Jedi after her or after him or Nomi Sunrider, after they died, a lot was lost to the light side of the Force. They were able to cast a technique called Force Light. If they were ever to stand against Sidious, put Nomi Sunrider against Sidious, Sidious would be completely depowered and cut off from the Force from her using Force Light. That is a technique that is so devastating to Darksiders, it literally erases the dark side in its light. It still would make wonder how the master-apprentice relationship between Zana and Caedus would be like if Drew Karpyshyn wrote it. Oh, believe me, dude, I would wonder how it would go too. But basically, Zana would be using Caedus's abilities to sneak through the galaxy to remain hidden, to ensure that they would find what they needed to do to keep the rule of two going. And then when Caedus finally slew Zana, she would seek out Darth Millennial. Darth Millennial, fucking idiot he was, but he did keep the rule of two going. Nomi was also very reluctant to learn the Force at first. Yes, because she feared it. But once she let go of it, she was one of the most powerful Jedi in the entirety of the EU. I learned about Nomi Sunrider through channels, or not through reading, but through channels on YouTube, such as Stupendous Wave. As much as Stupendous Wave covers Disney lore, which he calls canon, I may not agree all the time with him on some stuff, but I do believe that he knows his knowledge very well of both canons or both versions. Didn't Jedi ever have their own Force Lightning equivalent? Electric Judgment, Emerald Lightning. Yes, there was Force Judgment, which was not created by Plo Koon, but rediscovered by Plo Koon. Electric Judgment is a clever facsimile of Force Lightning, according to Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis, in my opinion, folks, is in my opinion, don't get me wrong. I could be, it's just my opinion. He is second only to Darth Vitiate, Valkorian. Valkorian wanted to become a god in the Force, to the point where the Force, he was bending the Force to his subservience. Where the Force, when Plagueis came along, abandoned him because he was delving into perversions within the Force, trying to wrench it out of balance And the Force replied by giving birth to Anakin, by creating Anakin Skywalker. And then the Force started to abandon Plagueis after Plagueis started naturally increasing his own midichlorian count. Plagueis went nuts. Now, I do think that Plagueis is an awesome Sith Lord. Don't get me wrong. I love the book. But I also do acknowledge the flaws of Plagueis. And when it comes to Plagueis, yes, the Force abandoned him because he was toying with the Force in such a way that the Force was forced to respond to counter him. The will of the Force is all things must also die. You cannot seek immortality. The last person that tried that learned a very hard lesson. You will die and you will stay dead. There is no chance you will ever come back. Even your spirit will be banished. Valkorian's destruction, after he tried one last time after the Eternal Empire fell, he tried to come out, or he tried to resurrect himself through Satele Shan, Revan's descendant, and failed because the Force literally awakened everyone who stood against the Emperor, and everyone the Emperor killed. They stood against him, and they stopped him, or the will of the Force literally manifested through all of the dead that stood against him and said no more. With the help of the Outlander and Satele Shan's own power herself, they were able to finally dispel to dispel the spirit of Tenebrae. Tenebrae was he was also a virgin. When he was given the name Vitiate by Mark Aragnos and allowed to rule over Nathema, that he was a kid when he killed his father. He also killed his mother because she was a weakling. She allowed herself to be weak. He hated that. As a kid, he hated that. And he killed her. And then he took the lives of 8,000 Sith Lords and the planet itself and drew it all into himself, giving him almost omniscient power. I mean, where Darth Nihilus feeds on destruction, Vitiate perfected that. He didn't have the constant hunger pangs of having to constantly kill. However, he could live for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and he could still, but he would eventually have to commit his ritual again, or he would actually have to do his ritual again in order to fuel his immortality. But at times, he didn't even have to use the ritual. What he relied on was death through the Force. He fed upon it all. And then he allowed himself to manifest just enough to commit the ritual quickly, like he did on Ziost. All life on Ziost was ended in a heartbeat. And people died really quickly. I mean, we all seen that scene in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Imagine a wave or a shockwave of death covering the planet. And then he fed on it and fled and then took the body and then fully inhabited the spirit of Valkorion, or the body of Valkorion, because he was already possessing Valkorion at the time, and he was granting Valkorion immortality and such. And he also would leave Valkorion, where there were times that they were said that Valkorion would just stare off into space as if as if nobody was there. Those were the times where Vitiate was acting in a different body. He could possess others, and he would have to leave his host body in order to do it. Vitiate was one of them, or is the most powerful Force wielder in Star Wars. Not the most powerful dark side wielder, not the most powerful light side wielder. He is the most powerful Force wielder in Star Wars. He would annihilate Luke Skywalker. That is another thing that I actually do not agree with on or when it comes to Stupendous Wave. He says that Luke Skywalker could beat Vitiate. Sorry, I'm having brain farts here, folks. Or he's doing lore vids and the style of Star Wars timeline. Yep. But when it comes to Holocron of the Galaxy, check this channel out. Okay, I will check them out. Let me copy that so that I can do that. Oh. Let's see here. I don't want to do that. Boy, there's some weird stuff here. Soul Assassin, send me that in, or I can't copy it, unfortunately, on my StreamYard because, well, it's either, I don't, or send me that in on Twitter or X. Keldor are the best species in Star Wars. I want to be one of them myself. You would die if you didn't have protective breathing on this planet. Disney will force you to be a boring human or whatever woke analog species they put out their lazy butts. Yeah, Eldors are interesting species. That is true. The Baron Dosages are extremely interesting, interesting. But you also have to realize you can't breathe oxygen. You know those things, the respirator that he has, plus the things over his eyes? Yeah, he has to wear those unless he is on his home planet. Because he can't breathe otherwise. He can't breathe atmosphere of humans. I kind of miss playing SWTOR. So do I. Unfortunately, a lowly Chromebook can't handle it. I mean, I didn't get as far as the Valkorian timeline. I ended after after the Eternal Empire, or after Nathema. After Nathema, I had to stop playing because my laptop, that was a gaming laptop, broke. So yeah, I enjoyed playing Star Wars, man. It was a great game. I hear it's actually they're trying to get its game extended beyond the 2025 deadline. Let's see here. Dark Rendezvous. I haven't talked Dark Rendezvous yet. Everybody, have you ever wondered what it would be like if Yoda turned to the dark side? Because he did, believe it or not. One of the great things about Yoda, he can turn to the dark side just to prove a point. Yeah. He turned to the dark side to prove a point. Now, there was a couple of Padawans. One was named Wee, the other one was named Scout. And Scout would eventually be sent to the Agricultural Corps because she was not sensitive enough in the Force to... And thank you, Soul Assassin. You have a good day. And thank you again for dropping in. Make sure to smash a like on your way out. The Caldor breathing masks are cool anyway, and don't mind wearing it. Yeah. You also would have a problem with 5 digits. You wouldn't be used to 5 digits anymore. They only have 4. Yeah. Their hands are more like this. But yes, Yoda. You learn a lot about Yoda in that book, folks. First off, you learn that he actually has to have his food in the Jedi Temple specially made. And there was one, or he also really dislikes droids. Yoda fucking hates droids. And when I say he fucking hates droids, he fucking hates droids. Because the droids, or the culinary droids, that when Yoda is eating his gruel, they can't detect that it is food. So he's like, I had this specially made. This is, go away. And the droid tried forcibly taking the stuff away from him, and he ended up having, or losing his temper a little bit. And well, yeah. Sorry, I'm itching my foot. And so he's like, oh, stupid or dumb droids. But yeah, after Wee's Jedi, or after Wee's master dies on an assignment because they're going back to Vajun, or to the planet Vajun where Wee was born. Wee flips out on Yoda. He's like, how would you know, or you can't possibly understand what I'm feeling. How would you, or how could you ever? You're the perfect Jedi. You don't feel anything. Well, smallest twitch of the finger like this stops Wee where, as he's walking away after being very rude to Yoda. Look how he beat on R2. That was all a joke, or that was all a that was partially his bias against droids, but that is also part of the facade he was putting on. But yeah, getting back to Dark Rendezvous, smallest twitch of him sent or stopped Wee where he was and spun him around with such force that Yoda also had to stop him, and then forced him to come over. And he's like, "Do you think I've lived many years? Do you think I haven't felt what you felt? I've killed many people. I've lost many people. I've loved many people. Do you think that my years were hollow?" He essentially tells him, he's like, I've lived more, lost more, loved more. But you think you're going to lecture me on loss? I feel every one of our students' death over the many years of my life. But you think you're going to lecture me on death? That was basically a lesson for Wee. It's like, don't ever think that you know more than me in this case. I have lived I've lived many of your lifetimes. And there is no way in hell that you are ever going to match what I have felt in the Force. Yoda, folks, his species, his home world, we will never know it. And I thank George Lucas for that. But also there is a trading card out there, folks, that is unprinted. And George Lucas absolutely banned the printing of that card because it gave background on Yoda's species. He didn't want that. What is my favorite Star Wars era? I don't have a favorite Star Wars era specifically. I have favorite characters of every era. So, yeah. Except for the stuff of during the line of Cade Skywalker. I never got into that era. I don't know much about that era. I also don't know much about after Darth Caedus. I know rudimentary stuff here and there about the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and also the whole Abeloth bullshit. I'm sorry, I just couldn't get into it after Filoni got into it and destroyed the continuity. I just couldn't. The ones of Mortis being put into the into the EU was where it's like, nope, I can't get into that. But my favorite era, if I had to choose one, SWTOR era, Star Wars: The Old Republic era, the game. The only Yoda species we see besides Yoda is Yaddle. Wrong. Have you ever heard of Master Vandar? He was one of Yoda's species in Knights of the Old Republic. There's also another one that was in Star Wars: The Old Republic game. Yep. There was, or Yoda and Yaddle were the only ones, or she was introduced in the movies. She's the only other one seen in the movies. She is not the only one ever seen, but yes, she's the only one ever seen in the movies besides Yoda. However, she is not the only one out, or that we know of. But yes, it's all right. You can admit to your mistakes. We're all allowed to be wrong once in a while. But did you also know, folks, that ET's species exists in Star Wars, which creates a humongous freaking do you know how many theories exist that Star Wars exists in our universe because ET exists in both universes? It's like, dear fucking Lord. It's like maybe his species is a transgalactic species like the Yuzong Vong. It's quite possible. But again, the events of what happened in Star Wars is billions of years long gone. If you really want to go there, why do you think it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away? It's because going to those galaxies, it would take, or those characters are billions of years dead due to space-time and its rules and whatnot. So, yeah. Although it does create a fun little fan fiction in my mind. I mean, I've created my own fan fictions, folks. I'm not above doing that. I've created my own fan fictions of where I have a Jedi character that existed in the Clone Wars that was basically not so much a wet works, but an elite task force of group or members or of a Jedi who works with other force sensitives to basically kind of like the special forces of a military, but the special forces of the Jedi, so to speak, where they go in some very important stuff and whatnot. But I also did not ever have the characters interact with any of the main events of the movies or the books and whatnot. I had to create different circumstances. I had a character who went up against Dooku on the planet Kessel and ended up getting killed. There's a Jedi that survived Order 66 but ended up getting killed by Vader. I've created all sorts of different fan fictions. But yeah. So, but I also have a character who has survived not just during the time of Vitiate, but also during the time of the Clone Wars, and then even past then, where he actually transferred to this galaxy via a long, long transportation journey in between the galaxies, which is very dangerous, and also kind of witnessed the birth of this galaxy through the Big Bang. And then came to this planet, and how do you think George Lucas came up with what he came up with? I mean, yes, I have some pretty wild fan fictions. What is your interpretation of the balance of the Force, since that is a lot of misconception among the Star Wars community? According to George Lucas, balance of the Force is not evenly light and dark. Balance of the Force is the destruction of the dark side. That is the interpretation of the balance of the Force. Anakin, or the way that they do it in Disney, is where he masters both light and dark. He's essentially Revan, reborn. Where actually, Yoda is actually more powerful than Revan. I used to think that Revan was more powerful than more of the Jedi here, except for Anakin. But turns out that what extreme or as powerful as he is well, actually I should probably keep that on. He's not as powerful as Yoda. Yoda is extremely powerful. But back to Dark Rendezvous for a moment. Yoda turned to the dark side to prove a point. And there's a passage in it where Dooku was trying to get Yoda to turn, and well, Yoda does. And in that small, tiny moment that Yoda turned to the dark side, where his body literally seemed to morph in front of Dooku. And Dooku regretted his moment. They're not that. Apologies for bad grammar. It's all right, man. What is your interpretation and balance of the force? Since there is a lot of yeah, that's all right, man. But yeah, Dooku, man, he said it himself. Sidious would be annihilated. The galaxy could not comprehend or could not ever comprehend the emergence of a Sith Lord as Yoda or as powerful as Yoda. That's how powerful Yoda is. That's why Sidious actually feared Yoda. Sidious actually thought he would have a good time against Yoda, Yoda would be an easy kill. Not the case. Palpatine is a master of all 7 forms of lightsaber combat. All the 7 forms. He couldn't beat Yoda with the lightsaber. So he had to rely on the Senate chamber and his use of the Force. In the use of the Force, Sidious is indeed stronger than Yoda. But man, when he turned to the dark side and Dooku sensed it, it's like, dear God, what have I done? Or it's like, dear Force, what have I done? And I love what Yoda says, because he's like, ask for anything. He's like, I want a rose. What do you mean a rose? I want a rose. Make me a rose with the dark side. And when Dooku lost his temper, that's when Yoda turned. And it's like, it's like, oh shit, man. It's like, disappointment. I do not like my apprentice. Whereas, give me my rose. He scared the hell out of him. And then he noticed after he turned right back to the light, just like that, he's like, your hand's twitching. He notices that Dooku's hand twitches and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, Yoda is or that book, people think that book is average at best, but it's like, that book is actually one of the greatest insight books you can ever get when it comes to the character of Yoda. I mean, that book is just that good, folks. No joke. Dark Rendezvous is a must-read if you are into the EU. But also, getting into Empire era, Force Unleashed, great characters in that. Galen Merrick, Starkiller, the Galen Merrick one, that's also the clone and whatnot, or as well as his clone and whatnot, was a more primal use of the Force. He had strength that rivaled Vader, because Vader was about to kill his father, and the second that he was about to swing, Vader's own force bubble, his own force barrier, was dispelled and overpowered by a child in the Force, who pulled his lightsaber away from him. And it's like, oh shit, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And yet, after a while, the kid would be trained by Vader, and he would also kill the stormtroopers that were there to witness it. And it's like, come with me. But yeah, Force Unleashed, a lot of people don't, or a lot of people, or when I first played the Force Unleashed, I played the PS2 version, where it's better to play the Xbox 360 or the PS3 version, because the PS2 version is very much different. You don't go to the Jedi Temple in the PS2 version or 3 version. You do go to the Jedi Temple like 3 different times, and you fight different Sith Lords, Darth Desolus, Darth Phobos, and such, so that you may learn different lessons. And I really enjoyed those games. I also read the books. I enjoyed the books as well. Galen Merrick is so strong in the Force that he can crash through a planetary shield with a rebel craft and ride that fucker through the atmosphere, keeping it in one piece, guiding it to a target, and crashing that fucker. I mean, it's like, yeah, slim pickings. It's like, oh crap, dude. He literally used the Force to hold a craft together and crash it through a planetary shield. Where do you think they got that idea for Rogue One? Mind you. So, yeah. You also have, or there's also other great moments where Starkiller is so powerful, the clone of him in Force Unleashed 2 channels Force lightning to such a degree that it is a literal compressed bolt of single bolt of Force lightning that is like this, like humongously wide to fry the Gorg. Now, in the you know how big a Bull Rancor is from the Force Unleashed 1. It is bigger than your standard size Rancor. Where this is from the bottom of my screen, folks. If this is the size of a normal Rancor, and this is the size of a Bull Rancor, well, now I'm gonna go to the size of the Gorg. Down here is the size of the Bull Rancor. Up here is the size of the Gorg. Imagine having to fight that. That gave Boba Fett pause when he was sent to go after Starkiller in the second book. It's like, this dude just fucked a Gorg up and killed this thing. It's like, fuck no, why am I going after this guy? I wouldn't want to fight him. So when he hands Juno Eclipse over to Vader, Boba Fett's like, yeah, I'm getting out of here now. Hey, Orange, hope you're okay. Thank you so much, Davian. It's also good to see you. And it's okay to be late, you know. But I'm here. Awesome that you're talking about the Force Unleashed. Yeah. A lot of people don't give those games enough credit. And now, folks, while I do, or because I am talking about the Force Unleashed games and the Force Unleashed stories and whatnot, the books, I am going to enter again, because I've already done videos and shorts on my channel about lightsabers and surviving lightsabers and surviving impalement with lightsabers. Because did you know in the EU, people have survived lightsabers impalement? Yep. Mace Windu survived being impaled by a lightsaber. Did you know that? Starkiller survived by being impaled by a lightsaber. Did you know that? I believe Jason Solo also survived being stabbed by a lightsaber. Did you know that? Now, Disney does it worse. That is true. That is true. Disney does it worse. And Disney indeed has a huge inconsistency with, or too many people surviving. where there's like 3 cases of people surviving being stabbed with the lightsaber in Star Wars, the EU, there are like fucking they go ape shit with surviving lights. Fucking Reva, not once but twice, she gets stabbed through the fucking chest with a lightsaber and survives. How the fuck does that happen? But when it comes to getting stabbed with a lightsaber, it is possible to survive. But you also need to look at the situations individually. If you don't look at the situations individually, it's easy to make the straw man argument. When it comes to Starkiller being stabbed through the back to the front with the lightsaber, it was in, and it's like, oh shit, that just fucking happened. And then Vader pulled it out, threw him out, and had droids recover him. Or had droids recover him quickly afterward. So yes, they went to great lengths to keep him alive. He barely survived that, but he did survive. Mace Windu survived being impaled by a lightsaber by Depa Billaba, of all people. Yeah, Depa Billaba turned to the dark side, folks. Look in the book Shatterpoint, the Mace Windu novel. Depa Billaba turned to the dark side, fought Mace Windu, and actually put her lightsaber through his gut. And it was kept in his gut for quite a bit. Yeah. So his insides should have cooked. He should have died, but he didn't. He survived somehow. So there's 2. Jason Solo got stabbed by a lightsaber, I do believe. I can't remember exactly when, but I do believe he did get stabbed by a lightsaber. And he also did eventually die by a lightsaber as well. But yeah. When it comes to getting impaled, Disney and living, Disney and EU are both guilty. Now, yes, Disney has done it with greater frequency, but if you look at those situations, I will actually describe them in next week's bit. But the reason why Qui-Gon Jinn didn't survive, and it's very, very well known, there's a reason that Qui-Gon Jinn didn't survive. 1, his heart was obliterated by lightsaber. 2, if you go frame by frame from the shot above the action where Maul is pulling out the blade, you will see frame by frame Qui-Gon's moving while that blade is still inside him. There is no way he is going to able to force heal himself, because believe it or not, he was using force heal. He couldn't use it, or he couldn't use it all the way to allow, or because he also understood the will of the Force. The will of the Force called him to sacrifice himself, but he needed to stay alive long enough to allow Obi-Wan to have that message, to stay alive long enough for him to tell Obi-Wan to train the boy. And hey, Price is Right Reviews, good to see you. So yeah, when people say Disney can't get lightsabers right, yes, Disney fucking sucks when it comes to lightsabers. I'm not disputing that. But if you are going to say, well, the EU did it, or Disney is destroying lightsaber effectiveness, the fucking EU did it first. If you can't admit that in your argument, you can't, or then your entire argument is weightless. You have no freaking weight to support your argument. Because a real person who is a fan of something will acknowledge the flaws. they will also acknowledge the inconsistencies. The Dark Empire series of the EU is by far the worst fucking series. I can't stand the fact that they brought Palpatine back because Palpatine was looking for or wanted to learn the immortality, yet he never, or to me, it was better that he never learned it. However, Dark Empire came out before the movies, so yeah, the Dark Empire series made sense that okay, he still died. Han Solo fucking kills the Emperor. I'm sorry, but how? I just don't get it. That's why I never read it all the way through. I didn't like it. How to do, Christian? Good to see you. And yes, Admiral Thrawn, Grand Admiral fucking Thrawn, was one of the most dangerous Imperials ever to plague the New Republic. Not the rebellion, because he'd never fought the rebellion. If Palpatine would have called Admiral Thrawn into service during the time of the rebellion, there wouldn't be a rebellion. He had more things, important things to do because he wanted Admiral Thrawn patrolling the Outer Rim in case the Vong came about, in case they invaded. How would I fix Dark Empire? I'd keep a couple elements, but honestly, I wouldn't have Palpatine come back. Palpatine died on the Death Star. I rail against Dark Empire as much as I rail against Episode 9 or that Rise of Palpatine story. Leave fucking Palpatine dead and buried. Let another character come forth who is a threat. I will bring this up only because it is brought up. Reva and Sabine survived because the Force and future is female. And if you disagree with Disney, you're just a bigoted misogynist, as the stands will scream. It's that there's a reason why Sabine actually survives, and I will discuss that next week, folks. But I'm telling you right now, Reva should never have survived being stabbed by Anakin Skywalker, let alone twice. I can understand why Sabine survived. Think anatomy. Think placement of the blade. You can understand why it's possible she could survive. But when it comes to lightsabers and stuff and the forms, now I'm going to allow you all to a nice little secret. I love Count Dooku's fencing style, Makashi. Great style, but I understand its weaknesses. Everybody, or Shadiversity had a lightsaber video in which he criticized the fact that the Jedi couldn't deflect all those blaster bolts and whatnot, and he showed Ki-Adi-Mundi. Ki-Adi-Mundi survived against General Grievous, and yet he couldn't survive against clone troopers. Now, that's not from Shadiversity. Shadiversity simply criticized that Ki-Adi-Mundi couldn't survive against or deflect all the bolts of the clones and whatnot. If you know anything about Ki-Adi-Mundi, you know a few things, like I do. I know that Ki-Adi-Mundi is the first Jedi Knight to ever sit in the Jedi Council and still retain the rank of Knight. Anakin Skywalker was the second one to do so. I also know that Ki-Adi-Mundi is allowed to have kids and wives because, well, his species is endangered. I also know that he is one of the he is a master of Makashi, Form 2, lightsaber combat. Not as good as Count Dooku, but one of the Makashi. Poor blaster deflection. Yeah. Poor blaster deflection. Dooku could be overwhelmed if people were shooting lightsaber or shooting blasters at him. You put 100 people in Dooku's path with blasters, he'd be dead. Why do you think, well, in Filoni's Clone Wars, why do you think he allowed himself to be captured by the pirates? He couldn't stand against them all. He is a Makashi user that is only good against blade to blade. Sucks against defending against blaster fire. Hence, Sorisu, Form 3, in which Obi-Wan was a master of. And I'm not just saying a master, I'm saying he was the master of it. Wishful thinking, if it mean a lot of posts of Return of the Jedi, and would be in the form of an old Republic style Star Wars game with each expansive as crucial story after Return of the Jedi. Wishful thinking, if it were me, a lot of post Return of the Jedi lore would be in the form of an old Republic style Star Wars game. Yeah, well, thing is, there was games that took place in the New Republic. I liked the Jedi Academy game with Jaden Core. That game is peak, in my opinion. You could you could cut off hands, limbs, and other shit. Duran Norris voiced Ki-Adi-Mundi in Clone Wars season or 2003. Yeah, and Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, as much as George Lucas disagreed with Genndy Tartakovsky, it's still acknowledged by even the people at ILM that it was, or they acknowledged that they were going off of that canon. And that is why General Grievous was coughing and sickly in episode 3. He wasn't always coughing and sickly, though. If it wasn't for his Force crush against General Grievous, well, Grievous wouldn't be coughing and shit. And take it easy, Davian. Thank you so much, man, for coming in. Although, didn't Clone Troopers kill Ki-Adi-Mundi easily because Mundi was surprised at first before reacting quickly? Yes. He didn't, or he actually sensed the change in the Clone Troopers' demeanor. How they stopped and they started loading their weapons against him. And yes, he managed to get a couple of deflections off, but he was quickly overwhelmed. Question for you, Orange. If you were training as a Jedi or a Sith, which lightsaber form would you specialize in? I would adopt 3 different styles. If there were, depends on other factors too. If I was solely, or if there was other Force users out there that would pose a threat to me, Makashi and Xian, as well as Sorisu. I drill those 3 into me as quickly as possible. Juyo is a form that is forbidden for user or for Jedi to use because of its high aggression factor. Yoda used Ataru to answer for his weakness. And Vapad answers Mace Windu's weakness. What weakness does Obi-Wan have? Well, Obi-Wan doesn't have a weakness. So when he used Sorisu, he felt it was important to have knowledge and defense. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the quintessential Jedi that is like the perfect Jedi of his age. The negotiator, so to speak. But when it comes to 3 different styles, Xian, Sorisu, and Makashi. Because blade to blade, a little bit of power, and a great impenetrable defense, you got a good combination there. Or Diemso, rather. Not Xian, but Diemso. So, yeah, those would be the ones that I would use. Neiman is also a perfect fallback, or is basically the evolved form of Shicho, which it is a perfectly balanced form. It exercises all the different aspects of all the other ones. So I would also learn aspects of Neiman as well, which is basically what Darth Vader learns. Darth Vader has a form or a lightsaber form unto his own because of the limitations of his suit. Let's see here. Oh, got another one. Great Allele voiced Padme, Asajj, and Shakti in Clone Wars. Yes, she did. If you chose 4 Jedi Masters and 4 Sith Lords, if you were a Jedi or Sith, to master their philosophies in the dark side, who would they be and why? Yoda, Qui-Gon, um, let's see here. Yoda, Qui-Gon, I'll pick 2 of each. Yoda and Qui-Gon. And for Sith, I would choose Valkorn or Vitiate and Plagueis. And the reason why, because Yoda has 900 years of experience or 800 years of experience. I gather I could learn a lot from him. Qui-Gon, because he also listens to the living force, a lot to learn there. If it wasn't for Qui-Gon, as I discussed in the prequel stuff, Qui-Gon was the perfect Jedi of the Old Republic. He listened to the living force, the will of the force, and those little or his championing the small causes were what led to the force eventually becoming into balance or coming into balance. Nelvanian language is based on the Hungarian and Russian languages. Okay. Who would win in a duel, General Grievous or Darth Maul? Depends. Are we talking Legends Grievous or Legends Maul, or are we talking Filoni Maul? Because if we're talking Legends Maul, Grievous would slaughter him. Which lightsaber color would I pick? Orange, motherfucker! Why would you ask that? Yeah, I would pick orange. Orange, obviously. Yeah, Legends Maul, Grievous would slaughter him. Because a lot of people forget Legends Maul, folks, had no ambition to overthrow his master. He was a tool of the dark side. He understood it and he knew it. He didn't learn anything beyond the skills that he needed to accomplish his mission. He was not searching for a way to kill his master. Dirge, the Gendai, great species. He was actually one of my favorite bounty hunters because that dude could go up against Jedi and slaughter them. He had a particular grudge against the Mandalorians because the Mandalorians fucked up his species. Lord Hoth, Qui-Gon, or Quick-Gon. Okay, Quick-Gon. Shot T, Plo Koon for the Jedi, and Sith, I would choose Revan Vitiate, Malgus, and Bane philosophies. All philosophies that greatly contradict one another in the Sith philosophies. But actually, I will choose two other Jedi aside from Yoda and Qui-Gon. I would also choose Thrawn and Nomi Sunrider. Yep, I would choose those too. Another fun fact, folks. Uh, Asajj Ventress. She is not a Dathomiri witch. She's actually a Ratatak or a Ratatak. Yeah, not to be confused with the Rakata or the Rakatans or the Rakata. No, she's a Ratataki. So yeah. Yeah, Darth Maul basically fit as a Sith assassin rather than a Dark Lord. Or yeah. Clone Wars Chapter 20 was intended to have scenes where the Jedi defeat Dirge, but per Lucas' request, it was replaced with an introduction to General Grievous. Yeah. I mean, it took a son to kill Dirge. It took a son to kill Dirge. Anakin Skywalker pushing Dirge into a son to kill him. Even after that duel with Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan basically fucking blew him up. Yeah, Dirge is not, or the Gendai species is incredibly resilient. And I know what you meant, Neozoic. I know what you meant. But yeah, we've been going almost 2 hours. We can go a little longer. We'll actually go into a little bit of some of the EU after the movies. I won't need to go into the books for this. A lot of people give Courtship of Princess Leia touch and go score at best. I like that book for numerous reasons. One, it showed that there was a group that Palpatine feared, and now those were the Night Sisters of Dathomir. He feared them so much that he put a superstar destroyer over that planet. And he had forbade all travel to and from the planet, and any ships that tried escaping Dathomir was to be destroyed immediately with prejudice, because he understood, that Star Destroyer that he outfitted had a lot more guns and turbo lasers on it than any other Star Destroyer. It was built for a freaking fleet killer, essentially. Grey DeLille placed Asajj Ventress on Eartha Kitt. Both portrayed Catwoman. Yep. Yep. That was not me. That was my chair. I do like that episode where Anakin fought Asajj Ventress. That was a great scene. I mean, but yeah, going back to Courtship of Princess Leia, you want to know how strong Jethzirian was, a Night Sister in the Force. Merely doing this, a flick of the finger like this, nearly killed Luke Skywalker. Nearly killed him. No joke. Nope, no joke. She's like, really? And he dropped because he felt so much pain coursing throughout his head, his body. He actually thought he had died for a moment. But then after he realized, okay, I need to step up my game here against these people. After that, he realized he couldn't face Jethzirian one-on-one. So he piloted the Millennium Falcon in such a manner that made Han Solo blush. He was controlling the turbo lasers, the top and bottom turbo lasers, with the Force, targeting with the Force. This is how powerful Luke Skywalker is, folks. You see that Disney version of Luke Skywalker. Sure, he's good. He's flashy with his lightsaber. He fucking dies from Force diarrhea. Where Luke Skywalker was channeling the Force in excess when he was even younger than that, and he didn't die. He was piloting the fucking Falcon in such a manner that more than 3 or 4 people are needed to do it. Otherwise, he was doing the job of 4 people while piloting the Millennium Falcon. For me, Lord Hoth was as well-rounded as, and very powerful, skilled Jedi Battlemaster. Yeah. And turned hero of the Republic who utilized the Force to enhance his already buff physique and battle prowess. From the Darth Bane novels, yes, I'm well aware of Lord Hoth. He was a pompous little fuck. He was basically the Fabio of Jedi, in my opinion. But he also did have a little bit of wisdom. But yeah, Luke Skywalker. A lot of people don't give Luke Skywalker enough credit in the Force, man. I mean, Luke Skywalker was a lot more powerful than Anakin showed in the movies and whatnot, because Luke Skywalker was able to expand his knowledge beyond his life, or beyond the age that his father lived to. I mean, Luke Skywalker, when fighting against Darth Caedus, when Jaina was fighting against Darth Caedus, her first time before, or where it was a stalemate against her brother thought he was fighting Luke Skywalker, because Luke Skywalker was in a meditation channeling the Force so strongly that he created a facsimile of himself, an illusion of himself over Jaina. Who would win in a duel? Luke Grandmaster Primes. I would give the slight edge to Luke Skywalker. I would give a slight edge to Luke Skywalker in this case. Luke Skywalker in his prime as Jedi Grandmaster, he was fighting armies. He was fighting armies. And yes, Yoda could do that too. And Yoda did do that too. But Yoda in his prime also was, or had to answer for his short stature. Hey, Tony Montana. Sorry, I'm commenting a bit late here. It's okay, man. Welcome back. How you doing? Christian Fades. Wait, really? She didn't? Yeah. Yep. Honestly, I thought that she was going for the whole Frieza kind of voice, but that's just me. But yeah, Luke Skywalker as a fucking Jedi, man. Mara Jade is not to be freaking scoffed at either. Mara Jade is was a powerful Force user in her own right, both Jedi and Emperor's Hand. Not Sith, but Emperor's Hand. Where when she needed to, she could literally create bubbles of air with the Force to literally walk on air. Luke did that in Courtship of Princess Leia, but Mara perfected it, because when she was infiltrating a person's house, she realized that there were sensors on the ground, that if she stepped on the ground at all, she was done. So she used the Force to create pockets of air that she could walk on to get into the house. She was also extremely skilled to go up against people like Darth Vader, if at all. That's why Darth Vader hated Mara. For me, a tough fight would pay to see Darth Malgus and Darth Vader. Malgus would slaughter Vader. A lot of people, due to both of them being cybernetically enhanced, but with breathing respiratory, allows them both to fight for days on their own. No, man. Malgus would slaughter Vader. As much as I like Darth Vader, man, I mean, I know I did a fight, or I did a versus stream of Malgus versus Darth Vader. I do believe I did that, and I do believe that Darth Vader won it. But honestly, I do believe, knowing more of what I know about Malgus now, Malgus would fucking slaughter Vader. He has the ability, or he can use Force Lightning to effect, or quite an effective use. And yes, even even in cybernetics, or even cybernetically enhanced, he was able to use Force Lightning. Vader could not. But yes, Darth Malgus would slaughter Darth Vader. I mean, yes, Darth Vader has an unending rage, but so does fucking Malgus. You know? He's not ever to be underestimated. But Mara Jade and Jason Solo. Darth Caedus. Caedus. He had potential, however, he didn't have wisdom. Darth Caedus thought that he was the king shit when he wasn't. Because here's the thing, when he was fighting against Luke Skywalker came right in, fucking shoved him in his chair with the Force and kept him there, while Caedus was already approaching his peak of power. He's like, dude, you're a pompous little bitch. Sit down, shut up, listen up. Caedus couldn't handle that. A lot of people say that Caedus is a very powerful Sith Lord. I also used to fall in that category at one time. However, Luke Skywalker was far more infinitely powerful than Caedus. Caedus may have known more. Luke Skywalker was more. Where Caedus thought that sacrificing his arm and not getting a replacement arm, or even having his arm regrafted to his body, yeah, dumbass. Get your arm back, you dumb fuck. Not to mention, I do give him credit for being able to turn off his pain receptors thanks to the embrace of pain from the Yuzong Vong. And that's another thing, folks. The Yuzong Vong, man, George Lucas, dude, fuck. When I read the books to the series of Yuzong Vong, and I started with Vector Prime, and I got near the end, and Chewbacca put up his final stand, and then, holy shit, dude, I cried. I also cried when Anakin Solo died too. I can't read Star by Star without Anakin Solo. And Anakin Solo actually had the potential to become the most powerful, even more powerful than Luke. If Anakin Solo had lived, he would be extremely more powerful than Luke. And I'll explain why in a second. Tony Montana, when you said Star Wars episode where Anakin fought Asajj was cool, were you referring to Genndy Tartakovsky? Yes, I am not talking about Filoni. I am not. Filoni's stuff I will discuss next week, Tony. I will discuss Disney and Filoni lore next week. I prefer Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars is my canon. I do not acknowledge Ahsoka or the Ahsokaverse as canon. I'm sorry, I just don't. Who would win in a duel, Mara Jade or Mace Windu in their prime? Oh, you're making me think. Possibly Mace Windu would edge out a little bit. His gift of Shatterpoint aims more than just seeing weaknesses in opponents. He could literally perceive weaknesses in the galaxy. So, yeah, I think Mace Windu would pretty much do a good job against Mara Jade. She'd put up a decent fight. Don't get me wrong. She put up a very decent fight, though. But, yeah. Where was I? Oh, right. Anakin Solo and the Yuzong Vong. Anakin Solo had his grandfather's potential. He may not have been born of the Force like his namesake, like Anakin Skywalker, but I'm telling you now, Anakin Solo would have been the most powerful Jedi in that era if he had lived past Star by Star. A death that sent shockwaves through the Force to where his mother and his uncle were on the opposite side of the galaxy and felt it so profoundly that Leia almost accidentally killed her nephew Ben, because when she felt it, she screamed out and was holding Ben so tightly to her she almost killed him. It actually took or when Han Solo learned of it right at that moment, because she screamed out her son's name, and I'm actually getting choked up from this. Han Solo just started blasting things at everything in sight out of his own anger. It actually took their bodyguards to stop him. The Nogri. They actually had to. One of them had to grab Ben away from Leia, while another had to tackle Han Solo to the ground to stop him from blasting everything in case he accidentally killed somebody. When Anakin Solo died, folks, I'm choked up at this. It was so hard to read. The reactions through the Force of him dying. Considering that this kid created a lightsaber from Yuzong Vong tech. Now, to let y'all know, Yuzong Vong are banished from the Force. They are exiled from the Force because they believe that the Force, or they were abominations. So much so that the Force literally cast them out of its grace, essentially. And yet he was able to cultivate Yuzong Vong tech into an approximation of a lightsaber crystal. And it only responded to him. Until Jaina actually learned to turn it on herself. That's how crazy Anakin Skywalker or Anakin Solo was. You want to talk essential rebirth of Anakin Skywalker? Anakin Solo was it. Unfortunately, he didn't live as long as he should have. Another great character was Anakin Skywalker in the EU, the book Rogue Planet, when Anakin Skywalker first killed somebody out of anger. He killed a Republic soldier before, or a lot of people, because they only go off of the Clone Wars Filoni verse. A lot of people don't know this, but in the EU, Anakin met Tarkin as a kid. Anakin met Wilf Tarkin as a kid on the planet Zanama Sekat. The reason why Obi-Wan and Anakin went to Zanama Sekat was because they were tracking a Jedi that disappeared from there named Vergir. Vergir was also a Sith apprentice who tried to kill Palpatine, Sidious, and failed. That's why she ran, and that's why when she came across the Yuzong Vong, I'm noticing something here. And my camera froze. Hold on 1 second, folks. Yeah. There we go. And there we go again. But yeah, Vergeer ran away from the Republic because she tried to kill Sidious after she realized who he was and agreed to secretly be his apprentice. However, when she tried killing him and it didn't work, she had to get the fuck out of there quick. And so she ran, and she came across the Yuzong Vong on Zanama Sakat and agreed to go with them if they would spare the planet that she was on. And Zanama Sakat is a force-sensitive planet. It's also a sentient planet. So, yeah. Alrighty. There we go. Top 5 favorite Star Wars villains and organizations. Black Sun. Prince Shizor's group. The Sith, obviously. The Imperial Remnant. The Eternal Empire. And the Hutt Cartel. Those are my top 5. Not in that order, though. Obviously. But yeah. In an episode of Evil Con Carne, Hector says to Boskov, "You will not watch episode 1 anymore because the bear didn't use his word or his sword properly." Okay. But yeah, does anybody else have any questions on or any thoughts on EU lore? Anything from the EU that I can talk about, I will. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Do you got any questions you want to learn about that I could provide for you all? And here's the thing. If you do have questions on Disney lore and Filoni lore, save that for next week. I will touch on it then. And I will touch on it with an objective stance as well. But now I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Do you got any questions? What are like favorites, this, that, and otherwise? Because I'm going to go for another 15 minutes and then I'm going to get myself some dinner. And I should probably plug in my computer. There we go. Yeah, because going for 2 hours, 15 minutes knocks the battery down to 53%. Lamaya as a character. Great character. And the concept of light whips. Yes. Yes. Light whips. Folks, hey, you're going to hear a lot from some channels. Not going to name them. Not worth naming. About how they love to bitch about light whips. Oh, Star Wars Disney's using light whips. Did you guys know that the EU did light whips long before Disney? Yeah. And before any of you come at me with they had a singular, or they had a physical strap or a physical whipping thing or a physical body. No, not all of them did. Because if you actually look in or at the construction of Githani's light whip, you'd realize there were several emitters built into hers, which allowed the light whip. I'll answer you in a second, Neozog, after I'm done this. Which allowed the light whip to or the energy blade to be more pliable, more weaker. Light whips do not have the ability to cut through things like Durasteel. It'll mar Durasteel, it'll damage Durasteel, yes, but it won't slice a person in half. But there are light whips that are the pure energy blades. Unfortunately, people don't really or you got those straw man arguments that it's like, yeah, but the light whips that were in the EU were or had physical tendrils. No, they did not. Githani's did not, and neither did Lamia originally. She had a light whip that was a purely light whip energy one, but as she continued to develop her light whip skills and use the force in many ways to help assist her light whip to get past the Shoto defense, because yeah, folks, the light whip or Shira Bree was exceptionally powerful with a light whip and the force and whatnot. However, she was also more cybernetic than Darth Vader. Darth Vader was approximately 60% cybernetic, where Shira Bree was 75%. Her whole fucking body was cybernetic, with the exception of her face or some parts of her face and whatnot. The Zeltron species, I'll get to that in a second too. But Lamia, I actually liked her case or her character. She was good. I really enjoyed her character, especially in the Caedus series. Top 5 favorite EU novels. Episode 3, Dark Rendezvous. Let's see here. Episode 3, Dark Rendezvous. Shatterpoint, Plagueis. That's 4. And Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader. Not in that order. Kyle Katarn as a character. That man was not a person that I would ever fuck with. Let's just say that. Kyle Katarn channeled dark and light, but mostly put into the light. But he also was the person, I do believe, that dispelled the after effects of the thought bomb on Ruusan that Darth Bane convinced the Sith army, the army of darkness, to use. So, yeah, Kyle Katarn undoing a thought bomb void. Yeah, I wouldn't want to fuck with that dude. I really wouldn't. Darth Treya, the Palpatine of the Old Republic. She was the Palpatine of the Old Republic. She was so, or when she became a Sith, she gave into Sith, man, but she also was psychotic like Palpatine. She was manipulative beyond measure. So, yeah, she's also one of those top Sith that I thought were pretty good. The Sith Triumvirate on Malachor 5, folks. Not ones to mess with. Opinions on the Zeltron species. The slut species of Star Wars. Zeltrons, man. You know the term women, eh? Or you know the Malibu Beach? Malibu Beach is basically where you would go see Zeltron species in Star Wars. If holy crap, man, That's all I could say. They were the sex species of Star Wars, if I remember correctly. They were they could do pheromones and shit to make you give in to your more hedonistic desires, if I remember correctly. How do you feel about the counter argument for time travel in Disney? What about Legends of You? They have time travel such as flow walking, etc. Yes, that is true. But here's the thing about flow walking. Flow walking with the Force does not change the past. It doesn't change the past. Because time in Star Wars exists all at once. When Caedus went into the past, he was unknowingly already there. When he visited the Jedi Council as they discussed Anakin Skywalker, when he witnessed his grandfather walking up to the temple, where his grandfather stopped ever so slightly because he thought he sensed somebody. He ended up actually, yeah, he did that. It's not in the movie, but yeah. However, yeah. You can't change the past in Star Wars. Not with flow walking. However, you can change the past with that room of spirit and time bullshit in Disney. I don't like that. What about Kip Duran? Oh, damn, Kip Duran. If I remember correctly, he was the one that taught Jaina Solo a very valuable lesson. And I'll get to Exar Kun in a second too. Kip Duran, when Jaina went dark after Anakin died, Anakin Solo, her brother, she tried blasting him with very powerful Force lightning. And when he caught it, dispelled it like it was nothing. Holy shit, man. That was an impressive moment. But also him dominating the mind of the Sith probe, the Sith ship, the Sith sphere, where he delved back into his darker nature with such ferocity that just to convince the Sith sphere to take off and not respond to Lamia anymore. That was also impressive. But he also needed to take some downtime in order to reorient himself. So Kip Duran, great character as well. Exar Kun, one of the most versatile Sith or Jedi turned Sith, man. Where you have let's see here. I'm going to use my ledger here. My ledger is about the same, essentially the same width or the same length as a standard Star Wars hilt or lightsaber hilt. Exar Kun's double-bladed lightsaber was this long. His hilt was this long for a single-bladed user's weapon. And he mastered that with such efficiency. Nobody, or only Ulic Qel-Droma, managed to rival him. Basta LaShawn as a character and her relationship with Darth Revan. They are the perfect story as to why it is dangerous to have attachments in the Jedi Order. She is extremely gifted within battle meditation. Yes, that is true. And Revan was a prodigal Jedi. Yes, that is true. But Their love essentially led to a collapse of the Jedi Order. Favorite Star Wars EU super weapon, like Death Star and Centerpoint in them. Uh, I would actually say I'd go Death Star. Oh, oh, baby, Neozoic, you spoiled me, man. The Basilisk War Droid, the Mandalorian's frickin' Blitzkrieg weapon of choice, both ship and droid. Folks, if the U.S. Armed Forces had a Basilisk or had a couple Basilisk war droids in World War II on Omaha Beach, let's just say that the Germans would have fled in terror. Though I want a Basilisk war droid, you know? I'm like fucking Mitra Surik in Coder 2. I want a Basilisk war droid. Favorite Star Wars EU ships. The Ebon Hawk is one of my favorites. Yeah, the Ebon Hawk, which is the Millennium Falcon before the Millennium Falcon. All right, super weapons. That's not a Death Star. Fine. Centerpoint. Inquisitors do not exist in EU. Neozoic. So wait for that one for next next week. And even then, I can actually answer that right now. I don't have a favorite Inquisitor. There is no Inquisitor that I have a favorite because I'm always fucking confusing them all. But yeah, Centerpoint to answer this one. But favorite EU ships, the Anakin Solo, Death Star or Star Destroyer was. The Ebon Hawk was a good ship. And yeah, the Millennium Falcon, definitely. The opinions on the Star Forge. Boy, you guys are really cracking out some good ones. I might just go a little bit longer just because. Opinions on the Star Forge. Beautiful weapon. Beautiful factory. However, not practical. You need the Force to power that. You start running out of Force sensitives, what the fuck are you going to do? You know? I meant Imperial Inquisition. I might actually be unaware of those ones. So, yeah, sorry. But yeah, the Starforge, even Revan started seeing the folly of it. He saw the flaw in it. It's like, how are you supposed to draw on, or how are you going to rule the galaxy if there's not a galaxy left if you use the Starforge to suck the Force and life out of everything in the galaxy? Just to build a ship, an armada of Sith weapons or a Sith fleet. Doesn't work, man. The Rakatans were, well, stupid and evil. However, they were brilliant in other ways too. Crate dragons. The original crate dragons, not that fucking Tatooine worm, but actual space dragons, the giant fucking lizards. Nobody asked about those yet. I love them. I want a crate dragon. If I could ever get a crate dragon, I'd have a pet crate dragon. And I'd ride that fucker across the land. Oh, it'd be great. Yeah. Space or crate dragons. Yeah. Sarlacc pits. Big motherfuckers. Oh. Example, Jarek is um I don't again, I'm not very much read in on the Inquisitor or the Imperial Inquisitors from the EU. I'm sorry, I'm just not read it. I don't know everything EU. I should point that out. I don't know everything EU. As I said earlier, I will comment on what I know. I can't comment on what I don't know. I don't have I don't have enough information to really offer any sort of opinion on this. I'm sorry, Miyazaki. But yeah, I might actually start winding it up. I'm glad that I've talked about as much as I did. Um, start or next week, folks, when I do the Disney stuff, I will bring these to bear a lot more because these matter. Technology matters. Uh, Consistency matters. Where the EU is not perfect, it has about 90% consistency. I used to say 95, but more 90% consistency. The Disney has about 5% consistency. What would happen if Darth Nihilus was the clone in the or Clone Wars era galaxy? Um, Sidious would slaughter him. Sidious would slaughter Nihilus because he realized that Nihilus was too much of a threat to the galaxy. Sidious would actually risk exposing himself to stop him. So yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is that, and I will get to Quinlan Voss in a second. A lot of people don't realize that Sidious built the Death Star to counter the Yuzong Vong. He didn't do it simply because he wanted to control the galaxy. No, he had the Death Star created for the Yuzong Vong when he knew that they were going to start calling soon. Quinlan Voss, a character that delved into the dark side. He was basically an undercover agent for the Jedi, from what I know. And he was actually quite powerful too. However, that's essentially all I know. I do know that he also discovered not Alima Rar, but God damn it, Ayla Sakura. I don't know much about Voss as a character or beyond that, but he had a good look, you know. Okay, cool, yeah. I completely agree. That fight scene between Anakin and Asajj from hand drawn Clone Wars show was absolutely spectacular. I thought loved it. That one amazing fight. Yeah. Oh, that fight between Anakin and Asajj, great fight. I mean, Anakin was pissed off because this person rivaled him in piloting skill. And then got a couple of good shots in afterward. So him giving into the dark side or into his dark side on a planet that actually had a good dark side aura. A lot of people don't realize this, but Yavin 4 has a dark side aura, and that is okay, man. It was easier for him to give into that darkness while he was in a Masasi temple. So yeah. But yeah, also I should or my final thoughts. General Grievous was peak in Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars because he was what the Jedi feared. The Jedi feared Grievous. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is Obi-Wan never met Grievous before he met him on the Invisible Hand. Because if he did, he would have destroyed Grievous easily during the Clone Wars. So Grievous, Genndy Tartakovsky Grievous, was better than that mustache twirling shit that he was in Filoni's Wars. But stay tuned for next week, folks, because I am going to be giving my thoughts on the Disney lore. Make sure you bring your questions and stuff because, or I will not be watching Andor. I'm sorry. I know, or I will go off of what I know. I will not go into the stuff that I don't really want to watch. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that or on what I know about. I'm going to reacquaint myself with what I know or with stuff that I've seen and such. But other than that, thank you to Vanya, Jet, Zathra, Christian, Tony, Price is Right, Dabian, Sean, Soul Assassin, and the rest of y'all. Tony Montana, thank you so much for coming in, folks. You all, Neozoic as well, thank you all so much for coming in. I'm going to get going because I got to get some dinner started. But you all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Stay tuned for tonight. I'm going to be on the Barroom podcast with Society Reviews and them. Tomorrow night is Blade 2 discussion on Jade Shadow's stream. And Thursday is what's Thursday? Demolition Man. And Friday is Orange Hat Uncensored, where I give my political thoughts and stuff. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Orange Chat. You all have a wonderful day, and always remember to stay humble. And may the force be with you.